Cool.
Webinar is now streaming live on Facebook.
Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ha ya hey ya hey Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pevi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo. Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey ha yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pevi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo. Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pevi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo. Hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey hey yo Fort Beck Community College, Ukiepino, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pevi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo.
Mitakuipi, Yushkewan Chian Kampich, Antewastea, Yuhana Pich, Uzapido, Elijah Hopkins, Demie, Wanawa Chinjawa Kapa, Dechia Dayan Yahidipido, Mitakuipi. Hello, everyone. Relatives, again, welcome to the Buffalo Chasers podcast. Again, I'm Elijah Hopkins, and I want to thank you for joining us today on May 20th, 2021. And in Buffalo Chaser fashion, before we start in on the announcements and the discussion with Nekshi Tommy and Nekshi Earl here, we want to see if we can have a prayer. So if Dekshi Nitawale Wacheyaki Ekta Oyaki, if you can hear me, Dekshi Earl, could you offer a prayer for us? Wacheyaki Ekta Oyaki.
Oh, geez, caught me off guard. I'm digging in, looking for it. Okay, hold on.
Wow.
All I got found was some bear root. My hair. I just came from a full day of work and I hadn't been in the school for us, so my mind's kind of, everything was happening today. So it's going to help. What? Poetry. Oh, I bet to go. What conky there? Takuku washteshte. Okipa zobna. Taku shichit a wayoka kena. Yo piachti hetaha taku ka speucha bonicha matash. He ukala tabna. Itke ho wochike okakakte. So we always need to look at the balance of life and ask for guidance. So I won't let wochike wakakte kile. Toakena. Mikhoshkala kana. Mikhoshkala ka koshkala kana. Iglustabna he. Graduation, you have to get to that. You have kana wakanja gana. Kokashi hena ushikcha. Awichayanke. Asking God to keep a good watch over our young graduates this year. And to walk in a go he wochika. Omaniba, Nichap, he isa. Wochika, he Nichap, Chanisa hena. Awan kwalse, Pagani, he Wanaka cake to wash test. So I ask those of you who are all in the prayer that you look upon our great spirit and it gives you good thoughts, good feelings. So heta he le kakuku ka hele wopila. Okaga wo nichap he. Ani wetu. Chai mohi honi. Chai tataku ka he prejute chaka ke. Ya okable zebna. And a wopila kakuyukcha. So we gave Mother Earth being thankful for our new growth in our plants, our medicines that are coming. And we think of those things and we give a big thank you for providing those up for our nation, for all races, all people. And Yeo Kishnala, Kchevachashaki. And you had Takuku Kawisha, you telo Kumki, and Takuku, he, Wasteshto Yukchabonicha, Wochika, Oekabna, Hoye, Hate Topataka, Oyamna, and Taku Nichabna, Koki Abantash, and Opilatka. We ask for guidance, give thanks for guidance to our Maker, a great mystery, so that He may receive our prayers and help others in a good way. So I uno go la tetuka akichi ta opkhapki hena okisha wechto she shnicha and an coach at Hogina Hona. We asked our blessings on our veterans who are far away and those who are incarcerated. We pray for them also. Those people that are seeing a hard time, we ask that you hear their prayers and to give them blessings. Saad Hokashila. And then Ahuna Ushik Chokaitovna. Ukoki apie. Leo Telo Kocha. Kchewichasha Mecha. To walk in a go Anapaha Kaya Kapi and a Wuchik at Hogina. Akuke Hewa Kapi and a Kankicha. Ahona and Okia. We asked you and those all who are going a spiritual journey, to help them with their prayers and their visions. So I Kashila, Iotela, and Nahuna Umkoki apie Kashila. Kashila Ushimpi apie, oh, Mitakuyoasi.
Oh, Pidame Adekshi, beautiful prayer. Thank you for starting us out like that in a good way. A few announcements, relatives. Again, just for those of you that might be hearing us for the very first time, the Buffalo Chasers podcast, we're coming at you every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m., bringing the message of mental health. We're having these discussions and utilizing some of our elders and some cultural knowledge to have good, healthy conversations around mental health for our students and really for our whole community. So that's just kind of where we're at with it. We're at week number 34. And before we turn it over to Dekshi Tommy and Dekshi Earl to talk about our weekly discussion here, there's just a few quick announcements. Our week 33 drawing winners for the jacket is Mr. Dylan Rain. Congratulations. Winner, chicken dinner. And then we also have a Kindle Fire tablet that's up, and the winner for that is Mr. Dale Walker Sr. Winner, chicken dinner. Congratulations, Dale. So a few other things here, a couple of other updates. For those of our students that started out this semester, we've came to an end. Technically, last Friday was the last week of the semester. Those of you that were in that student leadership development program, the Buffalo Chasers Student Leadership Development Program, that other half of that stipend went out yesterday. So, man, you guys are going to have some Mazda in your pocket. We know who to go hit up for a loan now. So everything's going to be good on that front. FYI there. Also, relatives, graduation day for the Fort Peck Community College is tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Wolf Point Gymnasium. Mr. Tommy Christian, Dekshi Tommy Christian, will be the master of ceremony. So he's going to be rocking that good message. And a few other things for my co-hosts here, Dekshi Tommy, Dekshi Earl. Mark the calendars. July 21st, we were requested by the American Indian College Fund to do a presentation for a summer camp. The Buffalo Chasers team, they reached out to us. They said, due to popular demand, we want Earl and we want Tommy. So I said, we'll make it happen. So mark your calendars down. So that's a good opportunity to reach out to a broader community. July 21st. I don't know if that's what he was referring to, but I can shoot you an email later on that. But yeah, for topic, whatever Dekshi Tommy, Dekshi Earl want to talk about. Last few weeks have always been really good, healthy discussions. We've got an outpouring of good feedback and responses through our surveys. So we know we're on the right track. We're doing some really positive things. In lieu of tomorrow being graduation day, that's maybe possibly a topic we discussed with Dekshi Tommy here and what that could look like culturally and how there's responsibility for those that are recognized and their families. And so maybe that's a good place to start out. What do you think, Dekshi? Dakui Dukcha. Mute. Can't hear you.
He's with code today, that guy.
Oh, we'd go.
I can't. Oh, mitaki epidaya hippie. I'm petukile michante ta oaglake nahana pechuza bello. All right. Oh, hey, charge me tal wamnisha ge doba imachiapi. Ushimalo. Omakiana agnagupta. Iska. Yeah. But anyway, my relatives, again, I want to thank my older brother, Nietzsche Ole. He looks for the poor ones, or they also call it, he's the curious one. But again, thank him for that very beautiful prayer in the beginning. And again, my relatives, this is a new experience for those of us on this virtual experience. So we're trying as well as we can to be as respectful as we can as it relates to the integrity of who we are as a people, the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota people, in respects to that value system that we live by that is founded on natural law. So that's why we do that. And again, as we do that, we call it prayer, but in our way, it's not necessarily a prayer as much as it is a wish for the needs of others. And if you heard the prayer as he translated it in English as he went along there, it's always for other people. It's not so much for oneself. And again, so some of our people refer to wachekia as a heartfelt cry. And in that, it's kind of humbling yourselves to this spiritual energy, this higher power for the sake of others. So, in understanding this whole concept and this um, indigenous thought process, we need to realize and recognize the importance of wowichaki ob omani, walking with the truth. And as you do that, it's going to become important because it takes a lot of discipline to speak the truth. It takes a lot of understanding to speak the truth, and that's how we do things. That's how we are. That's what we do, and you can find a prime example of that if you ever go to Indian court. Go to the court, and you'll find that many of our people, other than understanding that you're innocent until proven guilty, the judge will ask them, well, how do you plead? And they'll say, well, what do you mean? Well, did you do it or you didn't? He said, yes, I did it, so I'm guilty. And without affording that court to take on that what do they call it? That they have to afford you the right under civil rights to the onus belongs on the court system to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So you have every right to plead in to declare innocence. But because Indians are so used to speaking the truth, and of course, many people think we're stupid because we do that, but they forget that that's an exercise of who we are. Wowi chaki obo mani. I walk with the truth. And we don't fully, remember when Che Earl was talking about he's deliberating how to really transfer that understanding from English to Indian, or from Dakota to and Lakota to English. And see, that's the thing. In the spirit of that civil rights perspective, where the courts have to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, Geabado, that's what they say. We're not, and that's why I think it's sad that the courts don't afford our people an opportunity to understand that through an explanation, not to be political, but to understand the importance of going beyond oneself for the sake of the greater good. That's what civil rights do. And we don't realize it's our right to maintain that responsibility of pleading not guilty in spite of the fact that we did it or not. And see that, and I'm not saying all people, but for those that think with an indigenous mind, they'll always, yeah, I did it. Okay, throw me in jail for 5 days or 10 days or whatever it takes, whatever the penalty is. I can do it. I'll do it. He's trying to maintain his honor by not lying. And that's just an example. But, in that process, the discipline and the responsibility it takes to uphold your representation of not only yourself, but also your family, and even more than that, your tribe. Eh? And so your representation, you're standing there for a whole lot of people. And I think it's important that the system itself kind of acknowledges that. And that's why, long ago, what we had was what they call reparative justice. And in that, people didn't understand what that meant. Well, if somebody stole from you, as opposed to throwing them in jail, they'd make that person be confronted by the victim. And then the victim would say, okay, you stole this from me, then, geez, I need a couple cords of wood for getting ready for winter. You do that. That's reparative justice. And in that process, there's a payback to some degree justice that's being administered, but yet the victim is realizing something beneficial to them that's practical. Hey, well, the next deer you get, I'll get the back straps, or something like that. You know, again, making a point of reparative justice in that attitude. That's why we didn't have jails. That's why we didn't have uh, people that were locked up in handcuffs and stuff like that. Because again, there was a different attitude about this tribalistic perspective on how we did things based on honor and dignity, maintaining the integrity of who we were as a people. So that's what we're trying to come back to. And the reason I'm speaking like this, because tomorrow is a day in which many of our young people, I don't know how many was there, Elijah?
17 female, we are, and
Yeah.
11 we chashta.
Okay. There's 17 female and 11 men that will be graduating tomorrow, a total of 28 that had, you know, there's some blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of work goes into acquiring or accessing that sheepskin that they're going to receive tomorrow. And in that, we want to help them understand, you know, in a very good way, they be highly honored amongst us, and not only them for their own sake, but for the sake of their representation, their family, and all the tribes in this accomplishment. And then I'll try to convey that tomorrow in when I'm facilitating that gathering, but to help the graduates understand that this is something, man. This is really a big thing in their lives, in their individual lives, to achieve such a thing as that. And again, we need to kind of make that presentation. And you know, Chie Earl, they would do that at those rabbit dances. Remember, where the auntie or the uncle would come out and brag on their nephew or their niece or whatever, and then have their buddies come out and one of the partners come and dance with them, and they do that. I don't know if it was it the rabbit dance or the owl dance.
Owl dance.
Yeah, the owl dance.
Yeah,
And yeah, and see
that's the origin of it. What stemmed from there was the Kahominy and
yeah
rabbit dance.
See, and people don't even understand that the owl dance. That's what I mean. The rabbit dance was different, two and forward and one back. But
Wisdom,
yeah, and so that's the origins of that Gahominy. Everything else came after that. But that was an opportunity for the auntie to really brag on her niece, and not in a sense to where making her go way up there, but to talk about her in a good way. Some of the accomplishments that she did. Oh, she can sew and she can cook, and on top of that, all she takes care of her her sisters and her brothers, and she takes care of them, and talk like that, eh? And then on top of that, all they achieved a diploma or whatever, and then they'd say, "Oh, could you come?" Usually, her boyfriend called her, "Come out here, and we want to honor her." And all her friends, all her buddies, come out and dance behind them. We're going to sing a special song for them, and they'd sing that owl dance song, eh? And they would all dance around, and people. The reason they would do that is so that people could actually see an individual that's trying to become a positive force in the community, and then the people would know who they could depend on if they needed something, because this individual was a dependable person, eh? And it's a lot of those things have gone by the wayside, but that's what we're wishing for our people to start thinking about as it relates to developing their character, developing that courage, and enhancing that ability to go beyond your own personal needs for the sake of others. And we say for the sake of the greater good, based on that representation of not only yourself, but your family and your whole tribe, or in this case, your whole community, and then always being respectful in that arena. Knowing we're going to just kind of go out and be human too, eh? We're going to go and do some stuff, but in an arena like that, where they're acknowledging praise and accolades for individuals, you want to kind of keep it respectful and like that and stuff like that. But, you know, tomorrow is going to be a big day for many of our young ladies and our young men that have achieved these things. but they also have to understand it's good that the college affords us an opportunity to give them out. But there's also a respect that you're taking based on the dignity and the honor that that piece of paper represents, is being the recipient of that, the humility it takes to accept something like that, to be deserved of that, because that's what that sheepskin would represent, that you did the time, you did the administrative stuff, you did the learning, the reading, the writing to accomplish this, and you've done it. And so this is what we're going to we'll share with you. And so it's kind of like that. What are your thoughts on that, Chie, as it relates to applying some of these things that we're wishing for our young people to take on, but without imposing or infringing on their right to exist? That's why we're trying to remain apolitical and apersonal in respects to understanding how we think, how compassionate and empathetic we are as it relates to the things that we choose to do and how we choose to live. What are your thoughts on that? Huh.
Well, you know, it's a power of choice. You know, decisions have to be made for yourself. And as young people, a lot of decisions were made by their parents and grandparents, loved ones, and you know, advice as they're growing up and what they're gonna look forward to, educational wise and all that. And it all is laid before you, and you have to decide what is it that needs to take place for my future. And all I remember when I graduated from high school was, I'm glad to get out of that place, you know?
Yeah.
Because I went to a public school. And at that time, things were not the greatest when it comes to relationships in the community. And what I learned from experience was that a lot of that stuff was taking place in the community, not in the school.
Yeah.
I was asked one time what I felt if there was any discrimination or racism in the school. I said, from what I witnessed in these 4 years that I've been here, I said, every time I hear anything like, it's always people in the community. It is, we as students, we have a priority. We never, I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
Fortunate, you know, very fortunate. But at the same time, at that age level, you go through what you call the identity crisis. You get out of boarding school into high school, and nowadays these kids are experiencing them at a younger age, 9th grade, sophomore. It's an identity thing. Who am I? Who am I really? You know, what am I doing here? You have all these questions. When I went through that, there was nobody around that could really help me.
Yeah.
It's only those that were friends of my dad and my aunt that I could learn from. My Tony was Women's Army Corps, and my dad being a councilman and all that kind of stuff. And his cholas, they all greet each other with the word ksun. Where that originated from or how they adopted that. But everything was society related up to that point. I asked my dad, I said, what was RTO Spire? He said, the Kingsmen. That was RTO Spire, the Kingsmen. And to interpret that, it'd be like Wakatuya, Wichasha, you know, that kind of thing. So even in those, how would you say it, environment in which we were growing up, there were things to be learned, but you had to ask, you know, because they're not going to come out and tell you. They don't know what it is that's in you or in your personality. You have to learn to ask.
Yeah.
So that's where I learned about tobacco. If you wanted sincerity, honesty, and then you use tobacco. You set it down on a table, address the issue that you have, and if they can help you, only job. If you're sick, they'll direct you to the right person who has the proper herb, the proper medicine. If they don't have it, they'll be honest with you. They'll tell you. He's the one can help you. What you told me.
Yeah.
So he will not accept the tobacco. And that was the general rule. So then you took it, and then prior to that, it could have been a pipe bag, or it could have been a saddle, or it could have been a bridle, or it could have been a rifle, or a pistol, or a bow and arrow, something, all right, that was used
Practical.
as
Yeah.
intermediate,
Yeah.
intermediate thing.
Yeah.
Right. So what I observed and what I learned was that there are people who are knowledgeable and know these things, and you could be standing right by them and you don't know they have those qualities.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so some of the words that I would use is "dokishke,"
Yeah.
"abelazai," you know,
Oh,
"oyakachnigai." Do you understand?
yeah.
And you get that reaction, and so you learn more about it.
Yeah.
Learning about the origin of the flag songs.
Yeah.
You know how when they pick up feathers, where did that come from? Or they use 4 veterans to come and dance. Where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Because the oral history that I learned compared to what's and how they do things today have changed.
Yeah.
You know, so I look at it and I says, well, if change is happening, then we also got to use that as a guide to the way things used to be.
Yeah.
And you keep that in mind and you say, is this change the good for us, or is it not so good for us?
Yeah.
So in that process, there's that balance that you have to maintain. And Dankul Yuksha, they always tell us, think about things in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, and find that balance and practice it. So we're challenged with that every day. Every day. You know, I came from school today, and our situation, what's going on with how we're going to teach this new application into the schools. We had to sit there and listen to all the different, how would you call it, apps that are available that they want to get into, and
Yeah.
working together. You know, and that's where I think that we are doing that, us, with your podcast and what we talk about. We are bringing people together for understanding and sharing with others that probably never had the opportunity or would ever have the opportunity
Yes.
for the rest of their lives. But because of this new technology,
Yeah.
we're able to do that.
Yes.
That's very
yes.
positive. You know?
Yes. Absolutely. That's it too.
Yeah. But
Oh.
at the same time, the other side of that is the negativity. But we learn to balance that out to how do I take that negativity and turn it into something positive.
Yeah.
So I made a song like that to encourage
yeah.
people
Yeah. Yeah.
to take that
remember that.
negativity and make it positive, no matter how unfortunate humanity is. Right
Yeah.
now, I'm concerned about my younger brother who has heart is only 10% now.
Yeah.
My daily routine is go check out in the evening, call him in the evening, and see how you're doing, how you feeling today, and he's all I have now.
Yeah.
Him are the only ones in our immediate family that are still going. I'm 72 and he's 71. So having that understanding with each other, what he's experienced and I experienced, we share them with him. You know, we share and talk about it. And so the hardest part about that is I said, well, you're eligible for Fort Meade. You're a veteran, an ex-Marine. I said, you got to think about that. I says, when we need to know as your relatives to tell it, where do you want to be laid to rest?
Where? Yeah.
What are the things you would like to do? So he turned around, well, how about you, Ninja? I said,
What about you?
yeah, I have that all planned out. I said, no, I've taken care of that already.
Oh.
Right? So I said, we just have to hang in there. Who knows? It's not even time yet.
We might be able not. We got one leg in the grave and the other one on a roller skate.
Maybe we'll reach a century, but the communication, talking about it.
Yeah.
People don't like to talk about it. I never used to want to talk about death.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad and it's bad. You know, I shouldn't say bad, but it's a passing. And then we just things that we've grown up with. You know, is there afterlife? If there's this and that. You know, you have that crisis going on in your head, where is this, what's the realities of all this? And yet at the same time, your experience, what you need to learn to get there, to have what they call wola kota, to become harmonious with what's happening and be peaceful. So when you reflect back on that, we got experiences that we haven't even come close to sharing with each other yet. And there's so many people that need to hear those things. So what we got going here, potato, I'm glad that we're getting a lot of good reactions to this, because I've had friends call me and said, hey, we see you guys on this podcast. It's coming through and I found. He said, hey, we should do that on our reservation. I said, well, it's taking place. I said, well, we just don't have enough concerns. So I'm thinking to myself, I said, they got the right step going in the right direction. I said, let's stay on it, make it as strong and as full of guidance as we can make it, And so all of a sudden, I get a phone call, and it's one of my nephews. He's a singer. He said, I have a special request. I said, Dokai. He said, there's a young lady graduating at 5 o'clock today. She said she wants you to come and pray with her feather, her plume. And so, boom, just like that, I said, well, there are plenty of people who do that. I said, I don't know if I'd be able to do that, I said. And then he said, well, you put it on me.
They're depending on you. Yeah.
She asked for you only.
Yeah.
So I'm going over there at 5.
Why not? Okay, yeah.
So
it's almost close. Yeah, it's almost.
Better. Yeah.
I
got a few minutes, but I'd like to sing this song.
Oh, hurt you too. Why not?
Wish everybody, this particular song was first introduced to it by a friend of mine named Ned Metcalf from Rosebud. We were at a conference in Billings. So when I came out of a hotel, he was spit shining a hubcap. He's shining it out of his car. He's trying to seal that car. Well, guys. And we got to talking. And he gave me he said, each one of them spend each other. I said, along my head. Straight on the no oyaki. I want you to learn this song. And so I listened to that and I translated it and I learned it. And then I've shared it here everywhere, It goes like this. Mitakuye o asani wachielo takuwa haki nami chiho eotehi kelo wakataka Tokashela Oshi Olapo Mitakuye O Azani Wachielo Takuwa Haki Nami Chito
Now, what does that mean? What is that?
Grandfather is, how we perceive God.
Pity them. Yeah.
For all my people, give us good health.
How'd you say that word, Tazi?
Huh?
How'd you say that word? Give them good health.
Oh, Bichozani,
No. In that
Mazani.
song?
You put it in first person, Mazani.
Okay.
It comes
Okay.
from the word Bichozani.
Mazani. Okay.
Mazani,
Oh, okay. I got it.
Wanchielo. I want good health
Uh-huh.
amongst the
Wanchielo.
people, you know.
Huh.
And so whatever is of sacred nature, you know,
Yeah.
hear me, you know,
Yeah.
because in times when we get hard, I need this spiritual guidance. Yeah.
Hey. God.
Yeah.
Beautiful song.
All right. When are you blabbling, Teloso?
Ha, hecho tu doksha ke. Chanko ashte yo ha.
Yeah.
Chie.
Adios, amigos.
Amigos.
Heck?
The three
Oh,
amigos.
I'm trying to turn you off, but I can't turn you off. What's going on?
I can only get turned on, he said.
Oh,
Next.
there's a big red button says leave. Hello.
What the heck? But you see, for those that are listening, that's why I asked him to explain that song. And again, he wasn't singing, wasn't sharing that melody for the sake of himself. It was for others. That's that whole thing, that whole consistency in our way of life, in our opportunity to live this life. When we ask for a good life, it's usually to give me strength to help others. Does that make sense, Toshka? You see, and it's not about who and what I am, but it's who we are as a people and how they look at us, how they observe us. And when we say they, we're usually making reference to this wahatanka, the spiritual energy, and then our grandfathers and our grandmothers that helped us, that non-Indian people would call angels. Those are our helpers. Those are our symbols that help us in times of need or in a lack of understanding, and we get that spiritual guidance from them. And that's an actuality. That's a reality based on our requests and based on our opportunities to understand the importance of the protocol to be able to receive the blessings that are bestowed upon us by this spiritual energy with those grandfathers and grandmothers that intercede for that strong spiritualness that is being provided for us, and then they kind of dole it out to us as much as we can handle, so it doesn't become detrimental to our growth, but it enhances it. You could, like plants need water, you can give them all kinds of water and you'd kill them. Well, that's the same thing that our grandfathers and grandmothers give us, and in that, when you cross over to the other side, it's um, you become a grandfather or grandmother. So to those angels, to provide some kind of clarity for those of you that may not understand it, the grandfathers and the grandmothers, when you cross over, you become that. And then, so all the humans walking on the earth become their grandchildren. So that's why you'll see a lot of names being referred to, like the men will be called Hokshila, even though they're grown men. I'm a grown ass man, but yet they're be referred to as Hokshila because those that help us, that's the way they look at us. And it's a part of that humbling experience or opportunity and that ability to receive that goodness. Like that's what I was talking about based on that generosity, that ability to not only be a giver, but be a respected taker of these things that will help us continue to go on. And as you heard long ago, when somebody needed help, they'd refer them to a wapia wichasha, a man that fixes things through ceremony. And if he doesn't have that medicine, he would send you to somebody that could help you. Well, that's that honor and that's that dignity. He wouldn't have to make it up. That's why I was laughing when he was saying that all those other things, we just do it all kind of dokchinkche. That means like just any old way, or they just do it. They don't do it any old way. There's a protocol in that process. And so it's understanding that when you maintain that honor and that dignity for the sake of the integrity of who you are, who your family is, who your uh, people are, your community or your tribe is. That's that representation. But it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to understand that. Like what's going on tomorrow is what we would refer to in our language is in tawapaha. I'm hoping I'm using that word in context, tawapaha. And then of course people will say, "Oh, that means flag." Well, it does, but it also means deeds. You know, these deeds that you've accomplished. It's in tawapaha. Think about it. You know, kind of break it down and define it. And it means the deeds that you've done. It's a representation of these deeds, and that's how people will look at you. The tawapaha. It's your deeds, your acts that you've done in a good way. And this tomorrow. What's going on in the graduation is you're receiving something that is representation of let's call it a flag. Hey, think about it. It applies. It makes sense. From our direction, a flag, like they get ribbons. You see those ribbons on those guys' army uniforms, those campaign ribbons. They could be called flags. They have them on the guidons that they have. They have ribbons on there showing what campaigns they were in. Eh? It's kind of like that, and those are representations of their deeds as a unit, that they went and did this, did that, and we participated in this campaign, that campaign. Then from that you get a medal. Well, it's not actually a medal per se, but it could be looked at as an act, a good act, a good deed, which could be tawapaha. What do you think of that, Toshka? Am I getting too deep, too heavy about what's going on tomorrow?
Oh no, that's really good insight. I think you present it in a way that people need to learn it. That way, when they get there, they appreciate it a little bit more. And some of us were reminded again of those things. And so I definitely appreciate that. And in addition to this, which go, whoa, here, like the honor, the honor, like there's, so we get the graduation diploma, right? Yeah. So in addition to that, what's really cool, whether you're from this community or not, if you're walking and you're showing up that day, we have eagle plume, eagle feather.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So to me, and maybe you can definitely help explain this way better than me, but like just so the students and those that are watching, if they have never seen something like that, we want students, at least from the way I see it, when they show up, if you've already earned a feather, rock it, bring it, wear it, wear it. But you're going to receive another one when you get there. And then that's an honor in and of itself from what you earned. And so maybe you could speak to that a little bit. Our commencement speaker, if you can hear me, Dr. Sweeney Winchief, my brother, we call him Hawk. Yeah. Looks like a big old mean biker guy, man, but he's a true indigenous intellectual. So he's a really interesting guy to talk to. So I'm really glad to come share some inspirational words. But that feather and plume, could you maybe explain that to us a little bit more?
Sure, you bet. How to Toshka Diane. Again, lady, my relatives, as we do these things, as we go for these little deeds, in Boy Scouts, they give out merit badges, and because that shows that they've actually accomplished something in respects to some of the things that they actually did with their hands, with whatever they did that, and so they got acknowledged with that. If you heard me earlier, me and Earl talking, we were talking about the owl dance, and in that. There was things that people do because we're so verbal. We wouldn't write it down on a piece of paper and give it. We would talk about it. And then we'd have them dance in front of you, and we're not showing them off. And see, that's the sad thing. It's not a show off. It's a presentation of somebody. They're letting you know you recognize that somebody that they talked about, and that's who you can depend on in times of need. if you want a little help, a little support, this individual that they just spoke so highly of, that they're parading around in front of you, they're not showing them off. They want you to recognize them because they've been through this and they've done this. And so when you come through that procession and graduation, you got your caps and gowns on and whatnot. Um, that's what it's for. So people can see you and they can say, oh, I remember that person. Yeah, I don't know your name, but I know that you did this and you graduated. Could you help me with this? Blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like that. It's a communal thing, eh? But the eagle feather and the eagle plume is something that we hold with great reverence as indigenous people. But we also have a very high regard and respects to its representation when we acquire one. Or actually, it's not even acquiring one, but earning one is a better word. And so as we earn these, again, you can adorn them, adorn yourself with them, and we wish you to attach them to your tassel and whatever like that. And hopefully after that, you'll carry them and it'll be part of your representation. You can hang them on your mirror in your car, eh? You can hang them in your bedroom and on your wall. You can hang them in your living room or something like that, or with a picture, beside a picture of you with your diploma. Because to us, that's kind of like that sheepskin you're receiving. To us, that's another milestone that you receive in your ability to become this mature person as you do these things. And so um, the eagle feather itself is people will ask you, where'd you get that from? It's, oh, when I graduated, I received that. And so it means lots to you. May not mean nothing to anybody else, but to you, it's going to afford you an opportunity to have good memories, sometimes some tough memories because you know how hard you worked to achieve that. Eh? And so in times of need, it's going to bring back some of that respect that you have of yourself, and you know that you can do it, and you took on the responsibility, you did it, and so you have this feather and all that good stuff, and that's what it represents to you. But it's a symbol of achievement. It's a symbol of achieving a milestone that is very important to you. And then if you'd like to share that story, you'd be, oh, it's such a cool thing, because again, it's not something simple. The warriors, to help you understand the land-based understanding of the feather itself, the warriors were the ones that earned the feathers, and throughout their life, they acquired all these feathers. And people would ask, are you a warrior? And if you were wearing a feather, you'd say, yes, I'm a warrior. Oh, okay, da because you earned this feather, earned that feather. The bustle used to be made out of different types of feathers, not just eagle feathers, like a certain hawk feather or falcon feather with how many arrows you shot. There was a way that they cut those feathers, how many people you may have killed in action, in war, stuff like that. The paint that you wore was an identity thing. You always kept the paint the same because it was prayed for. It's kind of like your identifier. As a warrior, that's who you were, and that's the paint that you always wore the same way. Um, these things would be utilized, and so the warriors were the ones that were on horseback, eh? And so they would have the eagle feathers, eh? And that prove how much how big of a warrior you were. And initially, way back in the day, you'd put them on a stick, like a coup stick, and you'd have all these feathers on your coup stick, and the the daughter or the wife would be carrying that as she stood outside her teepee when you returned from war or you returned from a hunting party. And there were songs that they sang as they returned to camp, and the ladies would dance in front of their teepees, adorn themselves in their best regalia because they were so proud. And there was an honor beat. They'd hit the drum real hard, and the ladies would raise up your acoustic and lili tremolo for you, eh? And that'd bring attention to that lady, and then they'd see the stick that you're holding up would be either her husband's, or in the daughter's case, it would be her father's acoustic that she's carrying, and she'd raise it high in honor and respect of what your father or your your husband had done. And I said, oh, that family got a fierce warrior if he had a lot of feathers on there, a lot of scalps, or whatever the case may be. Indication of these brave acts. And tawapaha, eh? Flag, eh? Kind of like that. But again, it's something that, from our perspective, it's a very high honor to receive an eagle feather. And a lot of people, they get too carried away with the wakanness and stuff about that. But that's why I say, hang it on your mirror. Be proud of it. Display it in a place where people can see it so that they can ask you, how did you get that? Because you won't say it yourself. You let them ask you. And then it's respect that you honor them with the story behind the eagle feather. And that's a very humbling thing. You see, the recipient, not just the giver, but the receiver has a respectability about them to share that. You don't go and tell them, look at my eagle feather. I got it for this and this one. I was the best one. I beat everybody. You don't talk like that. But you say, no, this is what I earned as I went through, and I learned how to do this, and I achieved this. I got a diploma. Oh man, and I may be going on to further get a master's degree or something like that. And then the people that asked about it, they care for you. Otherwise, they wouldn't have inquired. And so maybe that'll become part of your support system, not just with just being your friend, but also prayer, which is spiritually one of the best things that you could receive. So kind of like that. You see how you keep that all without getting too self-righteous or pious or anything like that, but just common people. And so when you receive that eagle feather, that's what that represents. But display it, let people ask about it, and then you can share with them in a very humble way, respectful way, what it represents to you.
Oh, I thought
Okay.
so. Okay. I
Uh,
thought so. That was really good explanation. Thank you, Pidamia, for sharing that. Another thing, just because it's an important time and while we have everybody's ear and attention, buffalo chaser, one of those definitions for buffalo chaser is what I've been thinking about. In Assiniboine language, watape defines that old buffalo chaser. That's that one of those words. When I was listening to Dexy Earl last week or the week before, he's composing a Buffalo Chasers podcast song for us because that's one of his gifts. One of the terms that he was using to describe that in his dialect is Tatanka Wichakwa. Tatanka Wichakwa. So I thought that was really cho. But how would you define that? And maybe this is some parting words in for some of our students, because in English, naturally, many of our students, we say Buffalo Chasers, we have the Buffalo Chasers podcast. How do we embody that? What is that? A short definition, even though there's many ways we could describe it, but I think in part it is what you described. It's the honoring, having that, it's pursuing these pathways that sustain our indigenous educational pathways, whatever that is, right? What's that to you, Dexy? How would you define that? Or if someone that's starting out maybe they're in year one. They're like, man, I watch this podcast and they're talking about graduation. Get a feather next year, Doksha next year. I'll persist. What does that mean to you, a buffalo chaser?
That again, in a contemporary time, now we have to apply it to a contemporary time in respects to what is it that would become practical to me. And an education would become practical because it's going to help you become a little bit more a little bit more independent and all that good stuff. But remember when Earl was talking about when you receive something, a medicine from that man, you might give him a saddle or a rifle or a bridle, something practical. And so as a buffalo chaser, you receive something like that. How is it going to be practical for me? It won't unless you put it to use. Okay. Now think about that. And again, you can acquire degree after degree after degree and not even make them work for you, just killing time. Hey, anybody could do that. But yet, how are you going to apply it after that? Are you going to utilize it as a stepping stone, maybe into a doctorate program of whatever, a master's degree program in business or or even beyond that, teaching and certificate to help you enhance your abilities. And after you get into be a teacher, or do you want to become an administrator? Then of course there's qualifications for that as well. But like the old people say, our old people, they tell us we never stop learning until the day we die. Okay? And so that opportunity is there. So in Buffalo Chasers, you become representative of that title by whoever you are, as long as it's with respect. There's no definite, uh, there's no defined definition of, if that makes sense, of what a Buffalo Chaser is. It's who you are as you relate to that Buffalo Chasers Society that you belong to as a result of signing up and being an enrolled member of the Fort Peck Community College. And then you always understand, as long as I walk with respect, I am that. And then so I earned my eagle feather, I earned my eagle plume, because I know I can represent Buffalo Chasers Society as a respectful individual. Productive force in my community is another way to put it. Does that make sense, Toshka?
Oh, that's true. Potato. Very good. I appreciate that explanation. And relatives, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. A lot to consider, mull over, think about, and apply it in your own life. Again, we'll try and be here again next week, Thursday from 3 to 4. Tomorrow, just again, is our graduation commencement day at Wolf Point Gymnasium at 2 o'clock. We are going to be live streaming the event, as I was told. And so if you are unable to make it physically, join us on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and you can join us that way. So, and we will also record that event and put it on our YouTube channel, I believe. So with that, unless there's any other parting comments, Dekshi, we'll finish it up today. Bitakepi dokshta kea wachia kapikte, apeti washte yuhapo.
Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo Fort Peck Community College Ukiyepino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi no yo wata pepe agi tabi ihaji ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ya hey yo Fort Peck Community College Ukiyepino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi no yo wata pepe agi tabi ihaji ya bino hey yo